Hey, Renton here. Right now I'm inspired to make a little bit of a YouTube video on how judging works at my series of skateboard competitions around Australia called King of Concrete. So heaps of new skaters that have sort of joined us recently, and there's probably a need to explain a little bit about the judging. Skateboarding sometimes can be a little bit perplexing when you're thinking about how things are judged and you don't really know how things work. There's not a lot written about it, and in the past it's all been unwritten, and I don't know how it eventuated and evolved, but throughout my career it was always sort of based on the same sort of things, but it was never written anywhere. I guess things are going to start to change just with skateboarding getting a little bit more momentum, you know, with the mainstream of way more people skating and the popularity of skating getting bigger. And that's why I really just thought maybe I need to explain a little bit about the criteria that the judging at my events is based upon. So each run is judged, or each particular part of the competition is judged out of 100 in general. And the skaters, their score is based on basically probably two different things. And one of the things that is really important, obviously, is how they skate. The other thing that's also really important, that is one of the fundamentals on the score that they get, is how everybody else skates. So this can be a little bit of a weird concept when you first hear of it. You're like, how does that work? But the way it works is the ultimate end goal is to get the correct ranking, which is first, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth. And the judges, if the first guy goes, they get a score. If the second guy goes, then he's better, then he will get a bigger score. So say the first guy goes and he gets a 65, and the second guy goes, he does a better one, he might get a 70. And then if another guy goes and he's below the guy who's in second, then he might get a 60. So the way the judges do it is they think about what's been done prior to that skater and what number would correlate with putting that skateboarder in the correct ranking. So that's how you get your score. And it also means that, like, if you do two very similar runs on two different days at the same skate park, like basically the same run, done over 2 days, you can get a different score on both days dependent on how everybody else skates. Say, for example, you get a 65 on one day, and then the next day somebody who went before you skated better than you but had a 60, then your score would be lower than the 60 on the second day, because we were trying to get you in the right ranking position. So the score correlates with where you're going in the leaderboard. I hope that makes sense. So next thing is the criteria, and this is super important, and we try and keep it as objective as possible. So we have, you know, things that are objective and subjective. Subjective means that a decision is based on the subject opinion of somebody. We try and keep that to a minimum. We try and keep we try and keep things as objective as possible. And by doing that, we have criteria. And this criteria has just sort of been what's gone on through skateboarding just throughout the ages of, you know, whatever it's been, you know, 30 or 40 years of skateboard competitions. And I basically got all this information from judging competitions internationally and wherever, X Games and Vans Park Series and all that stuff, and, you know, just similar things that all comes down to basically this type of thing. World Cup events and stuff like that, it's all based on these sort of criteria, generally speaking. Again, I'm just speaking for King of Concrete. All the other organisers, they can explain their own. I think that's up to them. But the judging criteria, these things are all pretty much equal. You know, there's not one that's like valid more or one that's valid less. I remember them in a particular order, so whenever I say them in the same order just because that's what I'm used to. But basically the first thing that I think of is the use of the skate park, or use of the bowl, or use of the vert ramp, or use of whatever we're skating, you know, like, so you want to have a good line in, like, and that might mean in a bowl, it might mean linking together the best possible obstacles. So maybe you got a corner, a hip, an escalator. And it's how you link these different things together. You might go over the hip, around the corner, down the escalator. You know, maybe that's a good way to link some things together. If you're constantly linking obstacles together, then you're showing the best parts of the bowl and you're able to put them in an order that looks good. And that's very important. A lot of that goes over a lot of people's heads that have just started skating. And you see that anytime you see someone skate a bowl competition, they drop in and start skating the bowl like a mini ramp. That would be the opposite of a good use of the skate park. So if you see someone dropping in a bowl, it's like a mini ramp, you're only using a certain part of the bowl, you're not using the obstacles. I mean, at a pro level, when you start getting to the highest level of skating and you do a trick on a quarter pipe in a bowl, just the curve section, it's not going to be as valid as doing it as on another obstacle, because all the other obstacles are a bit more unique. There's a little bit more flair to it. And I mean, you know, let's face it, if you're going to do something on just a quarter pipe or a half pipe, we may as well be having a mini ramp competition. We've gone, you know, someone's gone and built the corners and the escalator and all these different things for a reason, and that's to skate them. And mini ramp tricks and vert tricks are great in bowls and parks and stuff like that. But if you can add them to an obstacle, it's going to be better. And if you can string those obstacles together, it's going to be even better again. So the use of the skate park is very important, because if you don't have a good line through the skate park, then you don't really have much of a foundation. It's like having a house without a foundation. It's not going to work very well. Second one, super easy to explain and understand. Difficulty of tricks. Tricks that are hard are gonna score well generally. At the same time, execution does come into it. I'm going to get into that in a second. So potentially easier tricks can score better than harder tricks. But as a rule, if you execute a really simple trick a certain way as good as you can, you execute a really hard trick in a certain way, and they're both executed perfectly, generally speaking, and for the majority of the time, the more difficult trick is going to get a better reward. Next criteria is variety of the tricks, and that's really to do with, you know, not repeating tricks. Repeating tricks is just doesn't need to happen, especially like if they're on the exact same obstacle. You're not going to, that's kind of the opposite of a good variety of tricks is repeating tricks. But if you're going to get really in depth, you know, like if you're in a bowl, you probably want to, you want some grinds, you want some airs, you know, you maybe slide on your tail or slide on the lip of your board. You want to go front side, you want to go back side, you want to grab with, you know, your right hand, your left hand, you want to spin one way, the other way. The bigger variety of things that you show, the bigger reward you're going to get, basically. So the next thing, execution. So this is a pretty big one, and the higher up you get in skateboarding, the more vital this is going to be. So when you're, you know, at a kiddie competition, a lot of kids are just learning, so a lot of stuff they do is not executed very well. And as you get better and better up to the pro level, you're going to start getting people that execute things really, really well. And you know, execution, you know, has got to do with style. It's got to do with how big your tricks are. You know, it's how far you grind. You know, the power that you have, and just how good you can make it look. And then, I mean, if someone does something really, really well, it looks really, really good, and it's going to get rewarded. Next thing, consistency. This is pretty straightforward. At the very basis of it, you need to stay on your board. So that means doing your full run and finishing a run. That's great. If you do a run and you bail, not so good. I wouldn't really be happy generally with a run where you fall off. A run popping out before time goes off, probably not as good as a run where you finish after time. That's probably the basics of consistency, and then you can get a little bit further into that, and that's exactly how you spread all of the stuff throughout your run. So that's potentially, you might see someone do a great trick, not so good, 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 good trick. That wouldn't be really good consistency. You know, other people might go, on average, they're just really, really high across the board, and it's consistent throughout their run. That may be some good consistency. Creativity also plays a part. Skateboarding, it's not gymnastics. It's you know, tricks aren't given a numerical value, and I mean that's basically because to spin off on a quick little tangent, that's basically because If you do a kickflip on a flat, it's different to a kickflip on a transition. There's so many variables of how you can do tricks and where you can do them, and on so many different obstacles. You just can't possibly give a, you know, like a ledger of what tricks are better than others. I mean, you know, you might have like an obstacle where a nollie is easier than an ollie, but then maybe on another obstacle, ollies are easier than nollies. So it's just complicated. It's all done on its own individual merits. Spun off a little tangent, and then getting back to it. Creativity. Probably the opposite of creativity is just to straight copy other people. I don't know, that might not be the best way to explain it. I mean, you want to show stuff that you need to stand out, basically. And if you're going to stand out, you need to do stuff that is either better than everyone or different to everybody or both. You probably don't succeed so much just by copying other people's tricks. I mean, we all go to these skate comps and we watch them and we sit there for 3 or 4 hours, and if everybody did the same thing, it would be boring. It wouldn't be good, you know, like. And so it's not that you don't need to copy, like the basics are always, or the fundamentals are, everybody has its fundamentals, you know, like, but you know, if you're going to have your things you're going to get on show, sometimes they're better to be different to everybody else. The judges are sitting there, you know, like for 4 hours or whatever. They sit there and they're watching, you know, 35 kickflips on a bank. It's like, kickflip on a bank, kickflip on a bank, kickflip on a bank. Even if you come out and you do a switch boneless on a bank, it may not be like greatly better than a kickflip. I don't know the obstacle or whatever, but I know if someone's just done 60 kickflips and somebody comes in and does a switch boneless, the judge is going to go kickflip, 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 switch boneless. Oh, okay, you know, like, so you want to get the judge's attention. You know, they're sitting there watching a lot of people skate, and whatever way you get their attention, that's up to you. On any of those 6 criteria is gonna you know, pique their interest. But doing stuff that's different to everybody else is also really going to get their attention. And which gets me to my next point. You know, like, if someone said to me, like, what would you say to get people to get a good score? And if I was going to break it down the quickest possible way, it'd be 2 words, and that is to stand out. Whatever way that may be, you might stand out because you got a better style than everybody else, you got a bigger variety of tricks than everyone else, your tricks are harder, you go bigger. Whatever it is, if you want a good score, you want to stand out. You know, like, so generally you don't stand out by copying people's tricks. When I say copying, I you know, like, everybody does the fundamentals. We get that, you know, like, we just want to make sure that we keep it interesting. I mean, if you're doing tricks that other people are doing and you want to get the same sort of scoring that they're going to get, then you better do the tricks better. That's probably a simple way to sort of put it. Yeah. And then the other thing that is pretty important to judges is just if you do things properly. With all of this stuff, like, there's no point value on the tricks, and then there's also, it doesn't matter if you do more tricks. If you do less tricks properly, you can get a better score than someone that does way more tricks but not very well. So some skaters that are great skaters can get by with doing less tricks and just doing them better. I mean, that can be a way to stand out in itself, just doing your stuff properly. Okay, so quick wrap up of the criteria. If we're going to say, like, we want to see someone that was going to score really, really well, we'd want to see good use of the skate park. So we want to see a run that went through all the major obstacles, linked it all together. We'd want to see as difficult tricks as possible. We'd want to see a variety of different tricks. We'd want to see the whole run executed stylishly and well, and tricks done properly, and we'd want to see tricks done throughout the entire run. Generally, that's the recipe for a great run. And then on top of that, of course, we've got creativity, which is basically meaning, you know, not doing exactly the same as what everyone else is doing, bringing your own flavor to it, bringing your own personality. And yeah, if you do that, you're going to get a good score. If someone else does that, the way to beat them is by standing out more. And if we're talking about the ultimate way to stand out is to stand out on every different sort of criteria, like have a better use of the bowl than everyone, have harder tricks, have a bigger variety of tricks, have really good execution, have great consistency, and, you know, bring your own personality and creativity to it. If you can hammer all of them, then you're going to absolutely rule it. Very few skaters can. The best always can. They seem to be able to do, you know, all of those things. But you can stand out on 1 or 2 or 3 or even 4 or whatever, but you just need to stand out. Get the judges' attention. You want to keep them on their toes and keep them stoked. And that is going to get you a good score and hopefully get a good result. Probably just as another note, just to add, the judges are just judging your skating on 40 seconds or whatever it is. Their results aren't like an indicative judgment on your life or where you're at with skateboarding. It's just for that time when you skated in front of them. You know, it doesn't mean, you know, like if you disagree with the judges of what they said, or you thought they thought that you sucked or whatever, like that's for that 40 seconds. That's not like a judgment on your entire skate career and saying that this kid isn't amazing or this kid is the best kid. You know, that's the same thing, you know, like if you win, it doesn't mean like, hey, you're the best skater there. It just means for that 40 seconds that everyone was given, you were the best dude. You know, like that's an important one, and that's a good one to make sure that kids know, because you don't want kids to walk away bummed or, you know, or thinking they're the best, you know, like, I mean, you know, if they are the best, you know, you probably want to be a little bit humble about it. But the judges, that's just their opinion of the skating in the time that they were given to judge. They're humans. They're doing quite a challenging job. They're judging over, you know, like a 4 or 5 hour period where they're judging every single skater against every other skater in that group. You know, when you're watching the skating, you might only be watching one person and then watching another person and then just comparing those 2 people. The judges are watching every single skater and comparing every single skater to every other skater. So they have quite a big job. They have to get their scores in very, very quickly, and their days are long and challenging. They do a good job, and I think, you know, like it's good to appreciate what they do as a job that's not easy. And if you ever try judging, it's one of the first things that people say. It's like, wow, that's actually quite hard, and it is. It takes a bit of skill, and that's why there's not a lot of people around that can do judging. But yeah, that's skateboarding. That's the skateboard competition. At the end of the day, we're just playing skateboards, going out there and turning this rad activity that we do all the time into a game with rules and scores and quantifying. And at the end of the day, it's just the same thing. It's just it's a little game with a useless wooden toy. We're not curing cancer. We're just having fun. And we got these esteemed judging panel of very experienced, skilled skateboarders that are there to give their scores on the skateboarding. But we just need to remember it's just skateboarding. Good to take it serious, but at the same time, these events aren't the be all and end all. And if you don't get the result you want, it's not indicative of your life or your skate career. It's just that time on that day. And I encourage everybody to just be pretty realistic about it and not be too bummed about having a judge give you a score that you weren't happy with, or at the same time, if you get a great score and, you know, maybe you win, just remember that and be appreciative that, you know, like it doesn't make you God on a skateboard. You just had the best run of the day. Anyway, but hopefully you got something from my little talk about judging. If you got any questions, just hit us up on Instagram, email, or even on the YouTube comments. I don't normally check them a lot, but you can send it. But I'm keen to try and help people understand the way this all works, because we try and do our best at King of Concrete, and we want to give all the kids a great experience, and we're stoked that everyone comes and shreds with us, and we hope to see you at the next events. Yes.